in verse 4 here, in 1 John 3:4, we like to quote that a lot. I do. I love that verse. A lot of people like to quote that. But until recently, I've just discovered that this verse is more than what I used to think it was. It's not less, or not something different, but it's just more on top of it, because of the context that the verse falls in the book. Verse 4 says, "Everyone who practices sin also practices lawlessness, and sin is lawlessness." Now, the word there for lawlessness, a lot of people are familiar with, it's anomia, which is the anti prefix, and namia, which is namas, a form of namas. Anti is like against, or in English like unblemished, stuff like that. And namia, form of namas, is law. So it's anti-law, like unlaw, lawlessness. Now, it says everyone practicing sin practices lawlessness. This is more than just a transgression of any Torah commandment to count as sin or lawlessness, because it's equating X and Y here. This is something more. The Septuagint uses the same word, anomia, to express those who defiantly practice covenant disobedience. Leviticus 26:43 is an example. It's when Israel is defiantly breaking the covenant and practicing such disobedience that Yahweh declares they're not His people anymore. It's like cutoff times where they're not His people because of their anomia, their lawlessness. It's not just the breaking of commandment. It's the idea. It's someone who refuses to accept that there is a law that they must submit to, a law or laws that must submit to. It's a defiant, refusal to obey that, or to accept that they're in a subordinate role. They must be on top in their mind. Now, taking this back to the context we just read, anyone who expects to see Him when He returns, yet practices this lawlessness, this unchanging character where they don't want to be subjugated to His commandments, doesn't have a heart for Yahweh. They still have that stony heart, as Ezekiel would talk about, that He wants to take out and put in a new fleshly heart with His commandments written on it. But they still have this stony heart. If when He comes back and they're doing that, then they're not wanting to be subordinate and to give in and to obey Him, then they're not going to see Him as we see Him. They're not going to partake in this bodily resurrection of the righteous like we will. They're going to partake in a resurrection, because there is a resurrection for everybody. There's two resurrections. But they're not going to be in the better one, because they don't want to be subordinate. They don't want to give in to the commandments of Yahweh. And we know the Matthew 7 verses that talk about, many will say to me on the end, "Lord, Lord, Master, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done mighty works in your name?" And He says, "Get away from me, for I never knew you, never, you who work anomia," lawlessness. Same idea here. It's not just those who sin, because we've all sinned and we all will sin, but it's those who defiantly refuse to be subjugated to what defines the sin. You won't participate in this resurrection, this righteous resurrection. You won't be like Him when He comes back.